Welcome to Voice of the People, and we're going to get right into our conversation because we have some voices in our building this evening, and we want to thank you all for joining us. And now we're going to go ahead and we have some guests here, and our guests are from CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, and we're going to let them introduce themselves, and then we're going to go on into our conversation. So, Ms. Cindy, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody about you.
Sure. Thank you so much, first of all, for having us. I really appreciate y'all's the opportunity you're giving us, but also the platform that you have. I follow y'all on Facebook and things and really enjoy the conversations that y'all are able to bring to the community. So thank you for the work you do. I am the Recruitment and Training Specialist for Allen County CASA, which is the Court-Appointed Special Advocates. This is a program where we work with to be the voice of abused and neglected children here in Allen County. Believe it or not, but in 2022, there were 1,522 children who were deemed to be in a situation that was considered abuse or neglect.
Wow.
And, judges are making decisions for these children, and they need information about the kids. But more importantly, there needs to be someone who's looking out for the best interests of those children. And that's what we do at CASA. In my role, I recruit volunteers, but also train volunteers. My background is I come from higher education for decades, where I've taught and been an administrator, and I love the teaching part.
That's good.
But I love the mission. I turned 60 and I decided I was going to do something different and get out of higher ed for a little bit. And, I guess this is what one of the things God called me to do was to train people to help speak up for those children. So, again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to not only, I'm not here just to recruit volunteers, I'm here to educate the community on this problem.
Yes, yes. And we thank you for being a willing person to come. We do reach out to communities and things, and we're glad that you're here, and hopefully we can inform some people and give some people some knowledge of what CASA is. Mrs. Morris, you want to introduce yourself and give us a little background about you?
Hi, my name is Danita Morris, and I am a court-appointed special advocate. I am a volunteer, and I've been doing this for over 20 years.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I started about a couple years after I moved here. My neighbor introduced me to CASA, and she told me about it, and I thought, wow, this is something I'd like to get into. And so I started over 20 years ago being an advocate, and I go out into the homes of the children and just advocate for their best interests, making sure that when we go into the court system that their voice is heard.
Right, right. And Ms. Cindy, you touched on it, but give us a broader picture of what CASA is. I understand that children often go into court by themselves, so they don't have voices. But for a layman out there that, don't really know the inner workings, give us the workings of CASA.
Sure. Well, think of it this way. Someone sees something, and they make a phone call to that state line to report, and there are specially trained people there that know what to listen for, know what questions to ask. If they feel like that this is something that somebody needs to look at, they will send it to the local office here in Fort Wayne. They'll look into it, and then they'll take it to a judge and say, this is what we know. Now, in this situation, DCS, Department of Child Services, is coming forward with a lawyer saying these are the things we think are going on.
Right.
The parents have attorneys, and they're doing. Those attorneys are doing for the parents.
Right.
Yeah. But who's for the child?
Right.
No one. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, that judge is going to make a decision about that child.
Right.
So he needs that additional information. And what we train volunteers to do, our advocates, is to learn what they can about the child. Who's in the child's life? How's the child doing? What does the child need? And be able to bring that and make recommendations to the judge saying, based on what we know, this is what is in the best interest of the child. Not mom, not dad, not lawyers, not anybody else. This is what the child really needs.
Right.
And believe it or not, that can be very difficult at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, too, that was a great explanation because a lot of people don't know how that process works. I mean, I've never been through anything remotely close to that, so I'm not going to say that I even knew how that process works. And something that you said that was very interesting is the attorneys are, the parents have the attorneys. The state, everybody has representation.
Right.
And normally that representation would be the parent, but the parent is, needing their own representation, and that's something that we don't think about, and such a need is present. So great explanation and illustration.
And one more time, Ms. Cindy, you said a number of children in the 2022. How big was that number again?
1,522 in
wow.
Allen
In our county?
alone. Just in Allen County.
Wow.
Is that do you know what, is that comparable to what it has been? Do you have any idea? Or, is it increasing?
The numbers have fluctuated. I will tell you that during COVID, the numbers went down.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm here to tell you that's not because things weren't happening. It was other people have to see these children
Yes,
Right.
yes.
to know. So if a
Exactly.
child's not
Isolated at
going to
home.
school, if a
Right.
child's not going to the doctor, if a child,
Yes.
other people aren't seeing the signs
Yes,
and the things that
exactly.
are going on. You would be surprised the number of teachers that we have in our ranks. A phenomenal number of teachers, because the teachers are the ones
Right.
who, over the course of
Yes.
their working lives, have seen these children, have seen things that they've called in on, but were never in a situation that they really could, work to help that child other than
Right,
report.
Very true.
And once
Yeah.
they retire, then they're like, I want to be there to walk with this child.
Right.
And I know what that child has been through and how to better help that child and be a voice.
So, Miss Sandy, I have a question. So, who actually referred their clients to you guys?
When you say, are you talking about the children?
Yeah, the child.
Okay, the children, so as I mentioned before, a judge determines if this is a what we call a CHINS case, or a
Yes,
child in need of services.
Yes.
And at that point, the judge will appoint usually either a CASA advocate or a guardian ad litem, or a GAL. This is not true across the state, but in Allen County, a guardian ad litem is an attorney who is assigned to a case, who has a similar role
Right.
to a CASA, but it is different.
Right, right. And you mentioned the guardian ad litem because I've had familiarity of working with people at CASA. There's a guardian ad litem, and then there's a volunteer. But what is the guardian ad litem's actually role? And can you you said it's an attorney, but give us a little broader scope of what all a guardian ad litem does.
Well, again, they're going to be more the person who has the legal expertise to be able to work on these cases. We do have an attorney, a CASA attorney, who works with the volunteer. Each of our volunteers, by the way, works with a supervisor, which is a paid staff member. But understand, these paid staff members may have 50, 60 cases. They have
Wow.
hundreds
That's a
of
load.
That's a load, and they are dependent upon the volunteers to really get to know the kids and to provide them that information. It is such a symbiotic kind of relationship, because our supervisors all have decades of experience in working in child welfare, and they know the legal system and how to do things and what needs to be done and how these things work. The volunteer doesn't have to worry about that. The volunteer just has to visit kids every 30 days, get to know the child, get to know what their needs are, ask the child what they want the judge to know,
Right.
and be able to speak for that child.
While you're talking about volunteers, because obviously the program wouldn't be successful without the volunteers.
Absolutely.
What would someone, let's say that I came to you and said, I think I want to do this. So talk about the process on how someone who's interested in volunteering, how they go about that and what the process on your end is.
Sure. Well, there's a couple of ways. They can either, we have some forms online where people can kind of sign up and say, I want to talk to somebody. They can come. I do every month a CASA 101, which is a 20-minute kind of spiel on this is what it is, this is what you'll learn and what you'll do. After that, then they put in an application. They come in for an interview. We have to do some background checks. our volunteers are officers of the court. I mean, they're
Yes.
they're assigned
Right.
by a judge. I mean, they have special rights
Right.
to the information, to confidential information that
Right.
only parents usually
Right,
have.
right.
Because a lot of times they are serving in that kind of role of, getting the information from the school that a parent would only get, or getting information from a doctor that only a doctor would get. But then once they have been accepted to the program, we have a 6-week training class that I teach. It's one night a week for 3 hours for 6 weeks.
Right.
And then half of that is online, half of it is in person, where I really try to walk the new volunteers through the information, the process of how you gather the information, how you then make your recommendations to the court, and to be honest, basically where you're going to go to get the information you're going to need later, because you can't learn it all
Right.
Right.
in that short period of time.
Right. And Ms. Danita, you said that you are a volunteer.
Yes.
And you're volunteering over 20 years.
Yes.
What is the duties of a volunteer, and what experiences do you get from volunteering?
I call myself a detective. That's how I label it. You go in and you investigate.
Okay.
You investigate. When you walk in, you can see things. You can actually, when you sit down with a child, just by the way they act, you can see things that way also. Sometimes they may not want to talk in front of people, so we have the right to take them aside and speak privately with
Okay.
them. So that's what I do. I go in and investigate, and then I report to my supervisor what I see, and then what recommendations that I might see that they need for that particular child. Over the 20 years that I've been doing it, I've had a lot of different cases, a lot of different situations. And so each child is different,
Right.
and you have to handle each situation when you go
Yes.
into that household different with each child. And one thing I can say, over 20 years ago, I had a case. And about 5 years ago, I walked into an establishment, and there was my CASA child,
Oh, wow.
flourishing.
Oh,
And so that made me feel so good that I was able to see after the fact what I had done,
Right.
and how I had helped,
Right.
that this child was doing well, a woman doing very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because something I was going to ask as I heard you speaking, obviously there's a lot of rewards to this, to being the volunteer, as you just said. That was a huge reward. But let's be real. The reality is you also are put in some situations that are definitely at that time not rewarding.
Right.
How do you handle those type of things? Something I always found funny is people would say, like, I don't know how you do that because
Right.
my heart is too big. Making someone feel like, well, you do it because you, to be in this position, have to have a big heart to be able to do this. It has nothing to do with your heart. How do you, with lack of heart, how do you handle the times that aren't so rewarding?
Oh,
Good question.
it's hard. It's hard. I always say I love what I do, but I hate the situation.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I
I
hate the
understand that,
situations. I love what I do, and I try my hardest not to let it get me down.
Yes.
But it does get you down.
Of course.
Because we can't scoop these kids. I can't scoop this child up and take them
Yep.
out of the situation. There's a process that has to be done. So allowing me to do the process and go and investigate it, it helps the process. It's
Right.
going to end up
course.
at the end. So it sometimes it's struggling for me.
Yeah.
It really is. To see a child that's been neglected in a certain way, that's been abused. It's hard to walk away from those situations. And then it's hard when you have a child that is crying for their mother or their father, their parent, knowing that may not be the best interest for that
Right.
child to
Yeah.
go back to that
Yep.
parent.
Yes.
So that's the heartbreaking part, because you want to give them what they want, but they have to get what they need.
What they need.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this and for 20-some years.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we applaud you.
Yeah, I have a question. Now,
Eddie.
when you put your have a child in a situation that you feel that you made a mistake by pulling them out of a situation, have you ever had that like,
Second guess yourself.
yeah, second guess, like, should I have done that? Or should I just let him stay where they was at? Or, you know what I'm saying? You let them stay when they didn't need to stay, or you pulled them when you didn't need to pull them. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I can tell you, we don't
That's a
pull
DCS issue.
anybody.
Well, I'm just saying,
With the
your
recommendation.
recommendation in.
Yeah, we can make recommendations, but that was one of the things that, to be honest, was like a deep sigh for me when I took this job, was that, I can make a recommendation to a
Right.
judge, but a judge is going to look at all the information.
Right.
And, there are days where things don't go the way we wish they would, and then there are days they do go the way
Right.
we wanted them to, but then it does, but it doesn't. We don't have super insight. We just gather the information that we
Right.
have, and based on the information we have, try to, as best we can,
Right.
with that unbiased,
Right.
Yeah.
good heart for the child,
Right.
make our recommendation. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to turn out the way we
Right.
want.
Right.
And it's not always going to be a happy ending, and it's hard.
Yeah, but as Ms. Danita said, sometimes the best ending is the interest of the child. It might not be the happiest situation, but it's the best ending. But I want to ask, because you said there's 1,000+ cases in 2022. With that being, so there's 1,000-some children. Are your volunteers at that numbers, or do you need more volunteers? I mean, how? Because you say the caseload, I imagine the caseloads have to be astronomical, but how do you assign cases in? How do you attract volunteers, or what are you doing to attract volunteers now?
Well, I mean, I'm doing everything I can to attract volunteers, and one of the things I'm trying to do is also increase the diversity of our volunteer pool. That's something that's really important to me. Right now, it is very much retired white women,
Oh,
old
Yeah.
white
okay.
women that look like me.
Were you gonna? That's okay. Were you gonna say me? She was like,
Well, no, I'm proud to say, I'm 62. I'm not shying away from that. I'm on the right side of the grass.
You
so,
sure are.
But no, I mean, we need more volunteers of color. We need more men. We have 5 men.
yeah,
5 men and 1 man of color, and that's it.
Wow.
So, I want more people of all, but some of this is very difficult because of cultural influences.
Yes.
In some cultures, you keep to family. Family deals with
Yes.
issues.
Yes.
You don't go out and you don't
Tell the business.
Right.
tell the business, and you don't do. And, so then trying to attract someone to this kind of work can be counterintuitive to cultural norms. What I'm hopeful of, and what I'm hearing from a lot of younger people of color, is that the younger generation doesn't necessarily view those cultural norms in the same intensity.
Right.
I mean, they understand, but then they also understand, if I have brown and black kids that are a part of the child welfare system,
Right.
I'd sure love for them to have a volunteer who's not an old fat white lady like me.
100%. 100%. Plus,
I mean,
for the child, we've talked about that before. When you have somebody that looks like you, especially when if you are a child in that situation, you went through something.
Right.
More than likely,
Yes.
you have went through something. So to have someone look like you is already just going to be even a small level of comfort to grasp onto. So I'm really glad that you spoke about the diversity.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even if you think about, some of our brown and black children, but think about our Burmese
Burmese.
children.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
That, I mean, the cultural, there are just some,
Language barriers and a lot of other
folks
things.
that don't get that if you walk into the home and there's no furniture, they think it's a
Correct.
a lack of whatever
Right.
versus a cultural thing.
Right.
Yes.
And so I really try to make sure that when I'm interviewing potential volunteers, that they are, number one, up to the emotional
Yes.
Right.
piece, that this isn't going to, be detrimental to their emotional health, that they can handle it, but that they also have a sense of they're at least willing to learn about the cultural differences and not make, to be honest, just wrong recommendations because of a lack of
Right.
understanding about cultural differences.
And Ms. Danita, when you say, and I'm glad she hit on that, you say you're a detective going in. Do you have a criteria that you look for?
Yes.
So briefly, and I don't want to go in detail, but give us some surface things that you have to be aware of or look for when you go into
When
a
I
home.
go in, I look, first of all, for the way the home looks. I look the way the child, I focus more on the child body language. I just, eye contact. If someone is just standing around and they can't have a private conversation with me, if I feel like they're being directed as to what to say, I ask them about school. I ask them about bullying. I mean, just everything that, as a parent,
Right.
I would ask my
Right.
child.
Gotcha.
That's what I do. I go in, asking questions that I would ask my own children.
Right. Oh, that's good. I have a question for both of you, and we talk about this a lot of times because in our community, the church is a hub for a great number of people at a given time. Are you reaching out to our churches or things such as that, or is there a way we can get you into churches that have volunteers, to recruit volunteers, or even to talk about the situation there?
You leave
Well,
that.
She wants to speak. I can tell.
Well, okay. When Cindy and our director, Nancy, came to me, I had always thought that we needed to go into the churches because some children are sitting in our churches.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yep.
That's true.
Not some, a lot of children are
Yes.
sitting in our churches. So I told Cindy and Nancy I wanted to go out into the public and I wanted to talk to the pastors. And I called multiple pastors. And I met with a group of pastors. And when I met with those pastors, I left there so disappointed,
That's sad.
so embarrassed that I didn't
That's
even
sad.
want to, I didn't go to you for 2 weeks and tell her what was said because it hurt me to the core.
And that's sad.
Because it focused on who was in office and held a paying position
Versus the
versus
The cause.
the volunteer as to what I went in to talk
Right,
about.
right.
I went in to talk about being a volunteer.
Right.
And I was questioned about how many African American people were working in the office. That's not what I came in there for.
right.
So that part, I was trying. I was trying hard, and I called and gave numbers, and I did all of that.
Well,
And I was disappointed.
How much came from the church? How many volunteers out of your contacts?
You have to ask Cindy. I don't think
None,
any.
probably not. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was local,
Well,
right?
Local.
in defense, I mean, I can understand this is a very complicated issue
Yeah.
that is, anytime you're talking about the courts and the
Right.
law, there are a lot of reasons why a lot of people don't trust the courts and the law, and I understand that. But at the end, I don't think enough people know and understand the plight of these children.
Right, right.
I cannot tell you how many people of color I talked to, and I say 1,522 kids
Right.
last year, and they're like, Cindy, I had no idea.
Right. But
Yeah.
and this is why we have you here, and this is why we're getting this message out, because once you hear and you don't do, then that's still a problem.
Right.
But here's what we're here. We're here just trying to get this message out. 1,500 children are in an abusive or neglectful situation, and obviously, out of those 1,500, a good number of them don't have the right representation or the right voice to help them. So we need to have volunteers, and be it men, women, young, old. You mentioned diversity, so there has to be a diverse section for the diverse section of children that are coming in there. That in all, it has to be for the child. the best interest of the child. I worked in the field, and that's how I knew a lot of CASA, because Miss Suzanne, is she still there?
Yep.
And I do believe Rex is retired. We worked together, and our whole thing when we went in was we want the best outcome for the children.
Absolutely.
And that's where you have to focus it. Anything else is, irrelevant. It's the need of that child that needs to be met. So we need people that with the heart, as Jill mentioned earlier, the mentality and the stamina to be able to. So we need churches. If you are any pastors watching this, I'm standing here right now. Pastors, any groups, fraternities, sororities, whoever's watching us right now, we want you to reach out to these people, because our children, as long as some other children are out there suffering and they need this help, we need to become part of it as a community. So I'm just saying, whoever's watching this, it's not to offend, it's the call to action. We want you to, these ladies are here saying that we need this call to action because it's about the children. This is our future. If we don't empower our future,
Amen.
Where's our future going to go?
Right.
Exactly. And I hate to say it, but when people live in a community where they don't see these things,
Yeah.
Right.
Some people don't want to see it and don't
Right.
want to know.
Right.
And some people but it's like you said, in your church you may have these CASA kids, they're coming to Sunday school, but we can't tell anybody.
Right.
We
Right.
we can't talk about our cases.
Right.
We
Right.
can't divulge any of that information. So some of this is you may be surrounded by kids who are in a situation
Right.
that you just don't even know the depth of what they are in. The other part of this, though, too, is even if this is hard work.
Yes.
It is very hard work, and it's not for everyone.
Right.
Right.
But if you see something, you can report it. We went and did a training for the Allen County Public Library, and one of the questions was, well, I don't want to make things worse. You know what? Reporting what you see and reporting your concerns
Right.
is the only thing that will stop
Right.
and change.
Yeah.
And let's remember, a lot of these parents I've learned, they're not monsters.
Right.
10 to 1, they are just parenting the way they were parented.
Yes.
And until someone helps and intervenes and help them understand what good parenting looks like and how they can live drug-free, which is
Right.
Right.
three big areas are for us is parents who have severe mental health
Right.
issues, drug issues, or issues with homelessness or unhomed or insufficient
Yeah.
housing, or children who are in hotels where drugs and other things are going on. So these are people, parents who just need support, help, and that's what we can help do and make sure that child is in a safe environment,
Right.
and as quickly as they can move to a safe, permanent, loving home. I mean,
Right.
that's always our end
Right.
goal.
Right. Well, Miss Cindy and Miss Danita, we thank you for coming. But we're going to have you give addresses or links where people can volunteer and things. But I want to say something to you, Miss Cindy. And if you give me some information, I know a pastor that I could sit down with, that maybe we can have you come out to our church and give a. I know a couple of pastors
She was at our church.
Oh, was she?
She was there for a conference that they did, and it was a couple of the churches were a part of it.
Okay.
And she did address it with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Anything, I'm open to anytime, anywhere, whatever I can do to help promote the need
right.
Yeah.
and how we as a community can address a community problem.
Right. So is the volunteer application online?
It's at allencountycasa.org. So just Allen County spelled out, CASA, C-A.S.A.org. You can just Google Allen County CASA, and it'll direct you there. I'd say my name is Cindy.Verduce at AllenSuperiorCourt.org, but that's kind of long and nobody knows how to spell Verduce. But yeah, if they go there, they'll be able to find information and be able to get in touch. Or give us a phone call too. 449-7190 is the direct line to Allen County CASA. We can do. Those who are familiar with Miss Danita, get in touch with her. One of the things I do is when somebody says they're interested in becoming a volunteer, is I put them in touch with one of our current volunteers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Say, call them, talk to them. They can tell you
Right.
what they do and what it means to do this work.
Right, right. Yes, that's what we needed. And we're going to leave the people. And our show is called Voice of the People. And right now we're going to talk about Voice of the Children. These children need voices. They need volunteers. So if you are a person, maybe a retiree, maybe a person that, has some extra time, they need these voices. They need these volunteers to help these children. Go to AllenCountyCASA.org. If you're one of these people, please fill out volunteer, because we're the voice of the people, but we need voices for these children. And we're going to thank you ladies again, and we'll have you back sometime again, to come back as we continue to push this vision and hopefully get more volunteers for our community to help our children, because our children is in these situations as well. So we got to be a mirror of what our community is. But as we thank you all
Thank
for
you.
viewing.
Thank you.
Sitting with us, and hopefully we touch somebody out there. But before we leave the people, what do we always tell them?
Always protect your mind.
Thank you. Have a good night.